So, welcome to the Writer Reads, Chapter 1. Today we're looking at Mack and Me Diplomacy 101 from the Mack and Me and Odyssey series. This is from Book 6. The book is described Judge, Jury and Executioners. The Lizardine are holding court and all humankind stands before them. They'll bring us to heel or they'll destroy us all, and they have the means. Getting their emissary to the courtroom and then home again should be an easy matter, but some people just don't know what's good for them. With pirates, mercs and corps gone bad, we've got our work cut out. The only question is whether we can keep our charge and all humanity alive. Chapter 1. A Homecoming and a Mission Brief. You came back. Mack looked like he was having trouble understanding the concept. And your point is? I demanded. But it was funny to see him so lost for words. I let him struggle a little bit longer. But you never come back on your own. I gave him my most evil grin and punched him hard. He grunted and took a half step back. Okay, so maybe I usually punched him harder, but I really didn't feel like it, so that was going to have to do. There, I snapped as he stepped back to where he was. Does that make you feel any better? He cocked his head, reading past my defiance to see what lay underneath, and I watched his lips curve into the tiniest of smiles. It's good to see you too, he told me, but if you want that hug, you're going to have to do better than that. Damn, the man was just as broken as I was, and neither of us liked backing down. Rowan groaned. I think I'm going to be sick. Mack shot the intercom a dirty look, but Tens had to add his own comment, and he knew exactly which of Mack's buttons to push. Don't make me come down there and show you how it's done, Mack. Like hell you will, Mack growled and wrapped his arms around me. I couldn't help it. I giggled, and then I hugged him back, burying my face in his chest and breathing in his scent. It really was good to be back. Uh-huh. You going to run again? He was really asking if I was going to leave him again, and I honestly didn't know. The whole idea of having a sanctuary aboard the Shady was something I was having a hard time getting used to, let alone having a partner I might be able to rely on. Ask me in another few weeks' time. His arms tightened and he rested his chin on my head. So, I get a few more weeks? Mm-hmm. He drew back, holding me at arm's length and looking into my face. Good, because we've just had this mission come up. Uh-huh. I cocked my head, looking up at him. How bad's it going to get? A shadow flitted across his face, and my heart sank. That bad, huh? He let go of me and then wrapped an arm over my shoulders. How much do you know about the world of Aqua Pearl? I wound an arm around his waist, leaning into his warmth. If I was going to have bad news, then I'd rather hear it this way. His arm tightened, and we turned as one, heading for the officers' mess at the back of the caff. Max started talking as we moved. It's a little world close to the edge of nowhere, and humanity wants its resources. So badly, in fact, that they've dragged the Federated Worlds into it. I gave him a puzzled stare. Federation doesn't tolerate that kind of thing. Besides, I thought there were rules about worlds with sentient life. He gave a short laugh. There are, but no one knew Aqua Pearl was home to a sentient life form when the companies went in. I gripped his waist tighter, my heart going cold. And now the company doesn't want to leave, I finished for him. Well, not now exactly, Mack corrected. This war's been going on for a few years, so it hasn't wanted to leave for a while. I frowned, but I haven't heard about it. No one has. The powers that be have kept it on the down and low. An Odyssey? I asked, because if there was one thing Odyssey didn't tolerate, it was the annexation of a world, regardless of whose side they'd fought on before. What do they have to say about it? His face grew bleak. Who'd you think commissioned us? I pressed my lips together, leaning on him a little more than I had to. We both knew how I felt about working for Odyssey. Yeah, we do, kiddo. Ten's voice sounded low and clear in my head. So you need to play nice. What? No welcome home party? I quipped. I baked you a cake, he responded sourly. If it hadn't been for Mack's arm around my shoulders and the fact he kept walking, that would have stopped me in my tracks. You did? I turned wide eyes to Mack. He had? Don't look at me, Mack told me. It was all his idea. What, you were just going to spring it on me cold and let me deal, huh? From the expression on his face, that was exactly what he'd been going to do. And then Rowan pointed out that Delight needed feeding, he managed, as if trying to emphasize that the cake wasn't just for me. She does? Haven't you noticed? She's a hell of a lot better to talk to if she's got cake. Or pie, Delight interrupted, her voice coming through our comms link and sounding far too content. I like pie, too. But I pointed out Cutter preferred cake, Rowan said, and seeing as Mack might want to make you feel like you really were coming home, he should see to that. Except I can't bake, Mack admitted. So, Tens made the cake, Rowan filled in. I made the cake, Tens claimed smugly. There you go, putting your past to good use, Delight scoffed, and I felt Mack stiffen. I, at least, have lived long enough to have a past, Tens informed her coldly. Unlike others who were born much later and only by some miracle have survived until today. So just how many regens have you gone through, Tens, sweetie? Delight asked in saccharine tones. None of your business, Tens snapped, coming out of the command centre as we stepped out of the elevator. He stalked down the hall toward us. Man, I knew that expression. Tens hadn't looked that pissed in a long time, and last time it had been with me. The memory made me smirk. I still wasn't sorry. Mack gave me a worried look. Carter, he began on the comms channel I knew belonged solely to us. Whatever, right? Tens stomped in after me, punching me on the shoulder as he passed. Ow! His response was unsympathetic. You deserved it. I thought about arguing, but Mack tightened his grip around my shoulder and I subsided. Tens looked like he needed a round on the mats, and I didn't feel like volunteering. Well, not yet anyway. Maybe later if I was feeling bored. I took another look at his face as he walked up to Delight, eyeballing her as he went past to slide into his usual seat. Or if I was feeling like a bit of time in the tank, I amended. Yeah, it was definitely not the time to mess with Tens. Thank you, Mack whispered in my head. I felt mischief tweak my mouth in a smile. Cutter? I shrugged, slipping out from under his arm to take my usual spot in the corner closest to him and furthest from the door. Mack waited for the cake to arrive, and I couldn't help laughing at the look on Delight's face when 2 platters of small pies were brought in as well. It's like someone read my mind, she managed, trying to ignore Pritchard snickering beside her. Mine too, her partner agreed, leaning forward to snag 2 from each platter. He caught the look on Mack and Tens's face as he took the first bite. What? He indicated Delight with a short wave of one hand. I'd starve if I relied on this one to remember that real people needed to eat, and eat real food at that. It's all about the mission with her, and food be damned. It was the most vocal I'd ever heard him, and I wondered why. Delight just rolled her eyes. I gave you an extra tube. Oh. My eyes widened. Well, that explained it. Tubes were great for not letting you starve, but you could hardly call them food. Exactly, Pritchard said, revealing he was in my head again, and I wondered how hungry he was to forget it was a fact Delight probably wanted that kept to herself. A star-sucking mont on tubes, playing a character so far out of my norm it'll take weeks to get clean after wearing his skin. I remembered the one time I'd encountered Pritchard's bounty hunter persona and suppressed a shudder. If he caught the squeamish curl of my thoughts, he ignored me. Instead, he finished his first pie in 3 more bites, wiped his fingers on a napkin and picked up the next one. I picked up a spoon and started on my cake. It had been a long ride in from Taliscan, and I had not expected cake. I also had not expected a meeting with Delight, or a new mission, or Mack to be waiting to meet me. But what the hell? I had cake! No one was going to spoil this, and the cake was a beauty. Cherries, chocolate, cream. I sighed, and Ten's face relaxed. If I hadn't known any better, I'd have said he was smiling and that he'd actually cared about what I thought. He does, and he is, Rowan assured me, on the inside. Ten swatted him for his trouble, but the ghost of a smile crossed his lips. Thank you, I sent via the comms channel, and the smile solidified before fading. His eyes flicked to delight and his face set in stone. You had something that had to wait for Cutter? He asked, his voice cold. She had? It did? I took another bite of cake and gave a happy wiggle. Cool. Delight froze mid-bite and stared at me over her pie. And since when did you ever sound happy to see me? My fork stopped halfway to my mouth and I glared at her. What makes you think I'm happy to see you? I asked, setting my fork and cake down on the plate. I stood, and Mack reached up and laid a hand on my arm. He didn't try to restrain me, or even ask me to be nice, and he didn't need to. Delight finished her bite, sitting back and chewing as she studied me. Your cake's getting cold. It's not meant to be hot, I retorted, daring her to find something to make me care. She picked up another pie and raised an eyebrow. Well, Tens might not make you another one if you start a fight. I glanced at Tens to test the truth of her words, and he dipped his chin in confirmation. That made me look at the cake and back at Delight, weighing one against the other, and then trying to work out the chances Tens would make me another cake if I behaved myself. What flavour? He asked, and I sat, picking up my plate and my fork and settling into my chair. I got to choose? Delight snickered, but even that did nothing to detract from the idea. There would be more cake. Cake was one of the few things I actually missed from my homeworld. There had been this little patisserie down the street, and they'd always been open when I needed somewhere to flee. Cake was a good thing. Tens groaned. I've created a monster. Delight gave another snort. I'd say the monster was already there and you were the idiot who woke it up. Rowan snickered, but Mack had had enough. Talk us through the mission, he said, and Delight stilled. It wasn't often Mack gave her orders, but that polite request was definitely an order, and Mack's calm was nothing short of a threat. The Lizardine want to end the war, she replied, setting her half-eaten pie down on her plate. They want a treaty? Mack's voice rose in surprise. Delight shook her head. You misunderstand me. They want to end the war. No compromise, no settlements, and definitely no treaty. They just want to end it. Mack frowned. Do we know which human companies are involved? Humanity's government started the war to protect a research company that's long since disappeared. But while Odyssey know there are other companies backing the war, we don't know who. Then how do the Lizardine propose to stop it? Delight met his gaze and didn't waver. They wouldn't tell me. I froze mid-chew. Just how mad are they? Mack asked. The Lizardine? Delight wanted to know. Mack nodded. He didn't give two shits how mad the humans were. They were in the wrong. But there were implications. If the Lizardine have hired you to help them stop the war, and you've agreed, then you must have some idea of the solution. Delight's face twisted with distaste. I do. And you don't like it, Mack concluded. Delight quirked an eyebrow, her mouth curving with an ironic smile. I suspect there's not a human alive that's going to like it. But you'll go along with it. She shrugged, all humour vanishing from her face. Their terms were quite clear. His face hardened. And it's nothing less than we deserve. Uh-oh. There was that word, we, which associated us to, I didn't want to even guess how many inhumanities of war. I was guessing humanity was deeply in the shit, but Odyssey was involved, which meant there might be the slightest chance of a way out. I glanced at Mack, trying to see what he was thinking. The damn man had walled off that part of his mind I could usually see, and was studying Delight. From where I sat, it looked as though he was trying to read her mind. In the end, he went with an educated guess. Save some or none at all? Her face grew shadowed. That's my guess. The higher-ups weren't exactly forthcoming on the precise details. Beside her, Pritchard looked sombre. He was still eating, but his eyes were darker, as though the mission was something he'd rather forget, and didn't dare. Mack read them both and sighed. Tell us what we need to know. We need you to pick up Chancellor Mikolesket and his security detail and escort them to high Earth orbit. Mack steepled his fingers, resting his chin on their tips. And is that all? Delight shrugged. They have their own shuttle, and they've said nothing about a return trip. But Odyssey would like it if... Pritchard nudged her, and she sighed. Fine. I would like it if you stayed until we're sure the deal has gone through as needed. They do know most of Earth Council is based on Mars, don't they? They understand that, but asked for high Earth orbit anyway. I believe they're going to try for a Mars insertion from that angle. Or they're going to try and reach the human capital. Domed City? Delight shrugged. We tried to tell them what condition the planet was in. They assured us they knew, and that their plans would hold, which is why you want us to stand off and prepare for extraction, Mack finished for her. Are they aware of Luna 1, Capricia and the Shangri-La orbital? They are, Delight nodded. They told me the counsellor would make his own assessment of the situation when he arrived. Mack studied her, making her shift uncomfortably until she reached for a pie to cover her unease. Just who is this Mikolesket, Mack asked. But Delight shook her head, pressed her lips together, and cast Pritchard an anxious look. He rose from his seat, dusting crumbs from his rumpled ship suit. We haven't worked it out beyond knowing it's better not to ask, he informed us, and gave Mack an inquiring look. Is our usual suite free? You're staying? Mack was astounded. Delight rose too. Odyssey's orders, she informed him, and gave him a tight, hard smile. I take it that's all right. Mack shrugged and gestured for the door. You know the way. Supper's at 7 ship's time. You have the run of the CAF, the recreation deck, and your quarters, and the most direct route in between. Don't make me create a diplomatic incident to enforce that. Delight gave him her sweetest smile. You know me, Mack. I wouldn't dream of it. Pritchard snorted and led the way out the door. We all knew Delight. He wouldn't bother dreaming of it. She'd just go right ahead and do it. That is where we leave Chapter 1. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit like. If you want to see more, please hit subscribe. And have a really good day out there. I'll check you later.